What's up, everybody? Shawn here, back with another live Live to Roll. This week, where we're going to be talking about some stem cell research and stuff, which is a pretty hot topic for spinal cord injury and a lot of stuff going on right now. So we're going to get into some of that research, some of what Bobby's doing with it, and yeah, it's just going to be the three of us today. So let's get into our quick intros. I think you guys know us, but I am Shawn. I am a C5, C6 quad from a snowboarding accident 18 years ago, or almost 19 now. Dang.
Dang, it's crazy how time flies. I'm gonna beat you today, Bobby. I guess I usually go second, though, right?
Yeah.
I'm Tom Conaway, C5, C6 quad. No, C
Ah,
C6B.
see,
Yeah.
you're a C.
I got caught in
Now,
my
now, now, you
old
C5.
habits. I'm a
You're,
C6B.
you're fancy.
Quadriplegic. I was injured 25 years ago, and yeah, coming at you guys from SoCal. Bobby, you want
Nice,
to take it
Tom.
away?
Sure.
Mr.
I'm like
Mr.
Tom.
5'6".
I'm Bobby. I'm C56, exactly like Tom. Exactly like quadriplegic, not tetraplegic. I don't know what Asia I am. Even if you told me, I would never go off it. So we're just going to keep it at C56. It's been 33 years. I'm not changing. No way, no how. All
I
right.
know.
Welcome, everyone. Glad to be here. These boys.
Uh,
Glad everyone
It's
uh,
can join.
it's
what's up,
funny.
Mickey?
We
The
got
main
Mickey in the
reason.
house. Miss you, Mickey. Love you.
What's up, Andrew?
Andrew.
Thanks to everybody for joining us. The main reason I'm a little finicky, I guess even more so now, surrounding the Asia impairment scale is um, because of, I guess, stuff like stem cell research and then aging with disability. You know, like getting an assessment of your impairment level, I think, is important for long term recovery and just kind of like denoting your progress and where you're at in terms of your level of function. So, like, after aging for 25 years with paralysis, I wanted to get reassessed and get a better idea of where I'm at, so I can like better track my progress moving forward in the future. And to kind of, I guess, relate it to today's topic,
I
stem
was gonna say,
cell
is that because you're gonna
research.
get stem cell
um,
and retest
that
again? Just
in
kidding.
like the current trials that are going on, that's how they're like judging and basing the efficacy of the trial, and like if there are any improvements or any actual success with the treatment, is they pay really, really close attention to your Asia impairment scale. They, look at you before the treatment, a year after the treatment, along the way, 5 years out, and it just gives them a scale to base, the effectiveness of the treatment. So I guess let's just jump on in. What
Yeah. Do you want to do some of? Did we come to a decision? Are we gonna do the research stuff first? Do you want to share some of
Yeah, well, I'm just
the
going to give
basic
an
knowledge?
overview
Right.
of what stem cell treatment is, what stem cells are, just so everybody can, start on the same playing field. Not everyone may be super familiar with stem cells, what they are, the treatments involved, and how that it relates to SCI. And then later in the show, we're going to talk about how stem cells are being used to treat other things, not just necessarily spinal cord injury related. Bobby has
Yeah.
some personal experience with some stem cell therapy recently has undergone, and we're going to not for treating a spinal cord injury, but helping heal a wound that's been very slow going and it's healing. So we're going to just talk about his experience with that. And so you got to hang around to the end. Make sure you get all the juicy info. And I'm sorry if I don't know. It looks like my camera is a little delayed or something. Like if my internet sucks, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm looking
Yeah,
into it.
I hate to say it's your internet, not your camera.
Or
I know,
it's
I know.
yeah, it's something
It
over
might be
there. But
my crappy
Yeah.
computer too, but we'll
I
see.
think it
It's
might be
not
the older
crappy.
computer.
I love you, computer. Um, what are stem cells, you guys? Stem cells are the cells from which all other specialized functioning cells generate from. So all other cells start as stem cells, and through the human biological process, they change and turn into the cells that, skin cells, other kinds of tissue cells, muscle cells, whatever it is they all start as stem cells.
It's basically
Um,
our raw material of our body.
exactly. Now, there's different kinds of stem cells. This is where things get a little tricky. There's a lot of controversy surrounding stem cell research and stem cell therapy. If you can remember back to like 2005, 2010, like especially around that time, embryonic stem cell research kind of became a hot topic because there was been a lot of advancements surrounding stem cell studies and therapy, meaning scientists were using it, studying it in the hopes of healing individuals with spinal cord injuries, helping regenerate all kinds of cells and treat a myriad of issues that affect a lot of us today. Things from Alzheimer's, ALS, like really, really, common um, disabilities that are very debilitating, and there seemed to be a lot of hope. Unfortunately, embryonic stem cells come from fetuses. Generally, they were collected from aborted fetuses, and if you know anything about American politics and stuff, there's just a lot of controversy surrounding abortion, especially the use of material gathered from aborted fetuses, embryonic stem cells generally. They over the last decade have found that it's not necessary to collect embryonic stem cells to get effective stem cells for this kind of treatment. Um, they're found that you could start to collect stem cells from umbilical cords, which are just like disposed of anyways. So that's very common. What is used for what's up, Paul? Thanks for joining us. Used for spinal cord injury treatment is umbilical cord stem cells. Those type of stem cells have very high potential to effectively turn into the kind of nerve cells that replace the damaged parts of the spinal cord. But that's not even a necessity. In the last couple of years, and Bobby will talk about it, they took stem cells from his fat tissue. They can take stem cells from your bone marrow as well. And there's a medical term that I don't want to get incorrect, but it's for it's when you get cells from your own body and repurpose them to treat other things versus from an outside source, from a donor that's not biologically related to you.
or
The
or even synthetic. So there's a
Yeah.
new, yeah. So synthetic is also another way that people are getting stem cell, which is
So
much cheaper. That's why they're doing it, but it's not as effective.
it's yeah, and that just I don't want to get too nitty gritty into the science because there's really no point. In that uh, they're more effectively able to take like umbilical stem cells and turn them into specialized cells to treat really complex uh, stuff like spinal cord injuries. But they can take it from your own body too. There's some pros and cons to that. One of the cons being is that they can't turn into as specialized cells in some cases and not be as effective in treating spinal cords, other different types of disabilities. But um, the science is changing every day. And we're kind of here to talk about the progress of that. I've been following stem cell research for the last 15 years. Ever since I kind of heard about it in middle school and did some Googling. I'm like, oh, snap. Are they going to be able to fix me? That was like my first thought. And I'm not, even afraid to admit it. Um, One being like, I don't know. I was like young and thinking like, man, am I going to have to do this wheelchair thing my whole life? That's might kind of suck. And I don't know. Like, I don't think hope is a bad thing when it comes, to the future, and like I always am hoping that I'm gonna get better. And even if it's not like a cure. And that's really kind of what we're going to talk about is the potential for stem cells to positively benefit our lives in the future, even if it's not like a miracle all-in-one cure, we're walking again. Because the reality is that's not a realistic possibility for most of us. But to regain something like bladder and bowel function to a certain degree, to just maybe get more mobility, um, be able to transfer easier, be able to just have a little bit more strength and mobility to enable a little bit more independence or easier function as I age and, grow up with my paralysis. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I want you guys to feel free to ask questions too. I am no expert in stem cell research. This is just stuff that I've researched on my own. I try to always look at medical journals and really like good source stuff. If you guys have any questions on anything that I mentioned in terms of numbers, like science or anything, I can always point you to my sources too. I got all my websites saved, particularly for the stuff like notes I took for today's episode. But if you guys just have any general questions or any personal experience with stem cells, we want to hear about it. I'd personally love to hear about it. So if you got some time to, share in the chat, we're always excited to hear from you guys.
And Mickey asked earlier if some people will go to other countries to have stem cell treatment, and that's typically back like especially 10 years ago. That's pretty much what you had to do. There was other countries doing it and stuff, but I think now there's
Well,
a lot of other options.
I'm gonna
And then,
I'm gonna talk about the studies that are going on in China, in Korea, because a lot of the published studies are, at least human studies, human trials, are from those countries. The laws in those countries are a little bit more relaxed in regards to clinical trials and performing them. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. It can be a thing that slows progress here in the United States. I think it's good to have checks and balances in this process because you're testing the efficacy of an unknown treatment and it could have bad side effects. It may not even have any positive benefits. That's what we're trying to find out.
Daryl in
So
our
having
chat just
check,
said he knew a fellow that went to South America 10 years ago, had a stem cell treatment, and it didn't help him much.
so
So
there have been this is like according to American Medical Journal that did a study on stem cell clinical trials in different countries, and they studied 62 trials. Basically, the details. Let me make sure I have these numbers correct. The 60 studies involved 2,439 different patients, and they vary in their stage of spinal cord injury. Some of them were in acute stage, meaning that they were just between like a few weeks and a few months following their injury, to chronic stage of injury, which is like a year plus. For us, like we're all very chronic in that we've been paralyzed for, you know, 18, 25 plus years, Um, those are the studies and trials that kind of interest me though. But before I get too off track with that, um, the basic here's like the statistical breakdown. Oh goodness, sorry for the call, you guys. Um, about 48% of the um, in the trial increased one grade on the Asia impairment scale. Now that's not. Sorry, guys. I gotta turn my phone off. That's not going from like C, like T to C, or C to T, or like T to L, or like that's not what they meant by that, because I'd like study what they meant. There's a different way they um, measure the Asia impairment scale too, with A, B, C, D, and E. A is basically no sensory, no motor. That's like totally complete. B would be something like me, where I have like no motor, but some sensory below my level of injury. And then there's the C, which is some motor, some sensory below their level of injury, and I think goes all the way down to E, which is like no impairment following the trauma or the injury, or complete recovery. So when they say they improve one grade, meaning that they may have gone from complete to like some sensory. So they went from Asia A to Asia B, or Asia B to Asia C. So they noticed a one grade improvement in 48% of the recipients of the treatment. And this is intravenous stem cell treatment, meaning like they stick a catheter into the spinal cord and they take stem cells from umbilical cord stem cells. They treat them through this process. They spin them in a centrifuge, get them in this particular kind of plasma, and then they put it in an IV bag and they flood your spine between like 1 in 10 million of these cells. I could have that number slightly off, but they pump millions of these stem cells into you, directly into your spinal cord, and in hopes that those stem cells will replace the non-functional ones in the damaged area.
Reconnect the damaged nerves.
Exactly. And basically it just helps promote like new cellular growth of those particular nerve cells. And they're really tricky nerve cells because they're axons. They're like these cells that carry electrical signals throughout your body. And just they're like a very specialized kind of cell. And there aren't many of them. And they're also unique in that they don't regenerate on their own. So, that's why we're all paralyzed. Most every other cell will regenerate on its own, but that's what necessitates the use of stem cell treatment in spinal cord injuries, because these nerves just will not grow back on their own. So about 50% of the recipients notice improvement. The way clinical trials go, some of these people got a placebo, meaning they didn't even receive the treatment.
I would be not happy to get.
Like that way that like presents like statistically is like the study knows who got it. Like they're only looking at the efficacy of the ones that actually got it. They have to have some controls, because what if someone that didn't receive the treatment said that they, notice improvement? Like that would go against the
Do
efficacy
you
of the
know
trial.
if the study that you were looking at, or that one, is one of the ones that Dr. Weiss Young did? Because I know the ones he was involved in had a lot of motion as well. So like they wasn't just stem cell injection. They were doing they were actually walking like trying to get the nerves to relearn and regenerate.
So this is basically a study done on the 62 different studies that went on over in China and
Okay.
Korea between 2018 and 2022. And
Okay.
this is like the 12-month post checkup, and then the like 5-year post checkup. And now they noticed this was like about 50% noticed some level of improvement, and on the Asia scale, meaning they received some level of function back, being it sensory, motor, or some level of bladder and bowel or sexual function. They noticed some hyperparent. Now, unfortunately, in 28 of the studies, they documented and reported the adverse side effects, like following like the 12-month and the 5-year mark. And here's where like the things get a little negative. Like all the improvement, like that's awesome, that's amazing. Like even if it's 50%, like this is the first like phase 1 and phase 2 trials, meaning like they're the first human studies being done. That they're only going to be able to improve the experiments, improve the types of treatments, like better gear these studies, and more specialized like treatments that they can look at. And the science has changed over the last several years, so and it's only getting better, and like those results are amazing. A lot of the patients like reported negative side effects of neuropathy, which is like neuropathic pain, which is nerve pain, as a result of maybe bridging some of those nerves again. But the sensation, the sensory return isn't always positive. Meaning, if it's incomplete, that's kind of side effect of incomplete nerve connection is neuropathy and nerve pain. Abnormal muscle feeling, abnormal muscle spasms, and then other side effects like headaches as a result of cerebral spinal fluid leaking into your body. But unfortunately, that's like a side effect of the treatment because they have to um, poke into your spine and poke into your myelin sheath to deliver the stem cells to your spine. And yeah, unfortunately, spinal fluid in your body isn't, it's like poison. It's not going to
Yeah,
kill you, but it makes you have really gnarly migraines and bad headaches and stuff like that. But we're mostly talking about the side effects of like incomplete return, in that you get a little bit of return, but let's say you're not walking in or you don't have full bladder malfunction. um, these negative side effects of stem cell treatments are a little scary. Like, I already deal with neuropathy and spasticity. Like, the idea of it increasing to any degree and not
yeah,
getting
I know.
significant positive return, like that kind of sucks. If you like, no, I don't have to sign up for that.
That scares me, to be
Um,
honest.
but they're in the first stages of these studies, meaning over in China, they're in phase 1 and phase 2 trials. So what does that even mean? Phase 1 trial is the treatment even safe? They're just seeing if it's gonna be okay to do this to people. And then phase 2 is, does the treatment work? They're testing the efficacy of it. This is what scientists believe, but if we do it to people, is it actually going to do what we think and help them in a positive way? And then we're about to enter phase 3 trials. That's kind of what I wanted to get on and talk about today. In a lot of ways, is where are we at with this? And phase 3 is basically testing, is the trial, is the treatment that they're testing better than currently available treatments? Meaning, good rehab, epidural stimulators like spinal stimulators, different methods of maybe treating the spine or treating long-term spinal cord injuries. Are there any out there? If so, are they better than what, would so treatment, stem cell therapy be better than what's currently available? Because why the heck are we doing it if it's not going to be better than what's already out there, right? So we found out that it's safe. It does work to a certain degree, meaning there's been efficacy presented in the trials. There's enough positive data to show that people are getting some real significant returns of function, be it sensory and sometimes motor. Now, it's not just a matter of injecting these stem cells, a couple of times into your body, intravenously, putting them in your spinal cord, and then you're just going to magically get return. Shawn was mentioning earlier is a lot of these studies are done in tandem with rigorous rehabilitation following the stem cell treatment. So following the, you know, treatment of the stem cells, the other part of this is getting your body to bridge those connections again. As you heal, as those cells are replaced, you need to be engaging them. You need to, be giving them like the cellular innervation, which is just like the activation. You need to be like working out, trying to move your legs in there, with the therapist, doing range of motion and stuff and activating these bridges. Um, Now, I've always make the argument that, and like I've seen it talking to so many people here on the show, newly injured, and just in general, people that I met. If you can do really rigorous rehab your first couple of years following your injury, like I've seen people gain real return, just from working legs, working their body, getting in the pool. Um, Whether or not that can be improved by combining with stem cell therapy, that's basically what they're trying to do. Is, hey, if we can provide a mechanism to regrow the nerves and regrow the damaged cells, but also you need to provide your body the rehabilitation required to gain significant return. I think that's super interesting, um, because it's not just, a matter of stem cell therapy. It's also a matter of, you know, good rehab, like
So,
continue your rehab well after your injury, because this stuff will never just miraculously come back. It's always a matter of kind of working to regain it. What
and
stem cell therapy is aiming to do is provide the mechanism to restore the damaged part that will allow you to activate that, through your natural body process, through
yeah, and
function
that's
of your
what
nervous system.
we had for on Triumph. He actually did a Zoom like big group thing for Triumph during the pandemic. But Dr. Weiss Young actually did come on and talk to us and answer questions and talk about some of the studies he did. And if you guys don't know who he is, he's just like one of the leading doctors that is doing a lot of the research and stuff for that. And he said in all the studies that they didn't do walking, stepping, exercising, rehab type therapy. The results were far less beneficial. And the other thing that he mentioned was for quads, they didn't do anything to work to rehabilitate our hands or anything, our upper bodies. They just did walking and stuff. So the quads a lot of times regained lower function ability where they were able to get some function back there, but didn't get anything in their upper mobility in their hands and stuff. So for me personally, I would do all upper. I don't even care about the chair. I wouldn't even work. I mean, they could stand me if they want, but I'd just be trying to like pick up Legos and stuff like as soon as I got my stem cells, like personally, because that's what I want. That's what I would try to like rehab
Give
and
me
get
my
back.
fingers all day, and that's about it.
Yeah.
That and
Well,
maybe my bowels, where I can control when I
And
want to
that
go.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Bladder, I'm fine with. I just leave that alone. But fingers and that, and maybe a little more triceps.
I'll
You know,
take that
and
too.
and Tom, one thing, that I keep hearing, and I'm sure everybody hears about, you know, about with our spinal cord injury, it's time. Time is vital to our spinal cord, and to those
yeah.
nerves. So once, you have a spinal cord injury, the first thing a good neurotrauma center hospital that you hopefully get shipped to is going to cool the body down and keep that swelling down, because a lot of times, like I think we were talking about this last week, where incomplete versus complete, right? So usually we say you're a complete injury if you severed your spine, right? So
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of swelling, but there's also some where it just barely hits the spinal cord, and then the swelling starts happening, and then all the nerves are being cut off. So the first thing that we have to do is get the swelling down.
And
And
that's
then
usually when the secondary injury, that's what they call it, during like the acute period of your spinal cord injury, is when the majority of the damage is done, is when the swelling occurs. It's not usually the initial trauma that will like damage the myelin sheath and the, gray matter, I think is what they call it, like the nerves and the stuff inside this myelin sheath. It's the swelling after the trauma that is
right,
the real like
and the biggest
damage
thing,
dealer. Yeah.
So I probably got lucky
yeah. So
getting hurt on the mountain on snow and was laying on like ice for my initial,
Well, that's one
whatever
of the
they
time
treatments
of
and
that they
injury.
do is
actually
they
they
chill
do
you
say
out.
water, being in water, cold water, ocean, like people dive in the ocean, or what
That's
you said, Shawn. Yeah, it definitely does help. By the time you get to a trauma center, your body has already had a little bit of a cooler temperature. So the thing is, they're cooling down that your body, and then also putting in um, uh,
They pump you full of steroids nowadays.
steroids. Thank
that's
you.
the other one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually,
There's
I got pumped with steroids back in
yeah,
'89. So they've been doing it for a while.
yeah. Um, they have really good success nowadays in that acute stage of the trauma to like limit the damage as much as possible. It used to not be as common for them to do that. It's kind of like once you survive the trauma. They just ride it out for a couple weeks and hope that everything turns out okay. But now they're actively working to limit as much damage in that stage as possible because they're aware of it. It's just um, but they're also doing stem cell treatment, stem cell therapy during that acute stage as well.
Yeah.
One thing that happens for like once you're a few years out and like you now have this like chronic injury is scarring will occur on your spine where the damage is done. So when the scarring is in the way of the other tissue, um, the treatment may not be as effective because your your biology has changed a little bit. There's scar tissue in the way where the axons and the cells need to go and need to grow and need to form, and that can affect. Um,
So, and then
you
actually
know,
there's scarring. There's scarring within the first week of after a spinal cord. So one thing that when I talk about the doctor I went to for my stem cell, he said they're getting good results by removing that scar tissue layer and then putting the stem cell there to um, hopefully generate those nerves back to life. So that's another
Interesting.
thing
yeah,
that they're working on is getting rid of that scar tissue. Now, remember that it's delicate, and then there is going into that area is a big risk. And so when you're
one
thinking
of the
about
thing. Go
going
ahead,
to
Bob. Sorry, I
Asia
mean to
and
cut you
Middle East, you're trusting a doctor that doesn't have the guidelines of the FDA, and you're putting your life into their hands and hoping
That's
that
scary.
he doesn't nick anything. And if he nicks anything, you don't have any recourse, and that's the biggest thing. So
That yeah.
recourse is none over there. You don't have any recourse.
yeah. The way
I wanted to
that
actually just mention in the chat. We actually did talk about this on a previous show, but Renee said he's been taking 4AP, which for people that don't know, that's another newer thing that's been like the last few years, and it's a drug that's supposed to help, I think, basically regrow stem like doing the same thing. It's supposed to help with growth of cells. um
it doesn't do the same
Uh,
thing.
I mean
yeah,
It doesn't promote regrowth. What it does is it helps the nerves. I don't want to speak incorrectly.
it helps.
It does
It
it.
helps wake them up. It helps. What it does is like kind of like shaking up a sleeping bear, and so they're waking up just a little bit to add a little bit of strength to the body. So mainly the 4-AP was mainly used for multiple sclerosis (MS). It is that they've been using that for years to help slow that process down of them debilitating in such a way of not being able to use their legs, so it keeps their legs going. So a lot of times if you have like a trace, so 4AP worked well with one of our good friends, Daryl
yeah.
Parker, where he was taking it and he can get his arm and almost his elbow off his armrest. And after, kind of like what Renee said, of being on it for what Renee said, 9 months, he was about 6 months. And then all of a sudden he's lifting his arm off his armrest. The problem is once he stopped, then it stopped. And I don't know, Renee, if you've stopped yet, or it can, I'd like to hear more if he did that or not, if he stopped yet or if he noticed a decline. But the thing is, you got to keep taking it.
Okay.
If no, how I roll, I don't think 4AP is to dissolve scar tissue. I'm pretty sure it's not. I've read some studies on like protein treatments and stuff that are like specifically designed to reduce the scar tissue in the surrounding area before stem cell treatment and stuff. Again, I don't want to speak too out of term on things like that. What they found though is even for longer term, more chronic, um, like uh, what's the right word? I don't want to say sufferers of spinal cord injury, but people who have like have spinal cord injuries because we don't suffer with our injury, we thrive with it, baby. Um, but people who have spinal cord injury, they haven't noticed that uh, it is less effective for chronic individuals. They've noticed some return, even for, people 5, 10, 20 years out who were in the trials. Now, some of the trials were only for individuals with chronic and long-term injuries. Specifically, Dr. Wise Young studies that were done over in China were for chronic injuries. Like, I think he had different levels, like 5, 10, and then 20 plus years. It's in all groups, some level of improvement, whether it be sensory or motor function, or both. Um, Now, where, like, that's kind of what I'm interested in, because obviously that's what affects me. They've noticed better improvement for people who have received treatment during the acute stage of their injuries, so within the first year, having got it. But that makes sense. Um, the thing about it too is, like, once these therapies are a meaningful thing in medicine, like, they're real, they're only going to get better. They're only going to improve over time. They're going to find better ways of, like, more effective ways of administering these treatments, especially for more chronic long-term injuries. The thing that we have to worry about is the negative side effects that come along with it. Incomplete recovery. I have really, like, atrophied muscles in my legs, meaning that if I were to get, sensory return in my legs specifically, um, I probably experience a lot of discomfort as a result of that. And also, the reality of motor function return in those extremities are not realistic because of that. Even if I fix my spinal cord, my muscles have gone too long through overuse, so I probably would never have mobility like a normal,
Yeah.
functioning person, because the muscles, like, are beyond return in some respects of regaining normal function, just as a result of no use over 25 years. Now, I am just like what these guys said earlier. I've never really thought of, first when I first heard of stem cells, the thought of, like, the cure all popped into my head, but it's not really kind of why I follow this, and why I think it's interesting is because, I'm hopeful for, maybe bladder return, or, bowel function return or something in the future. That kind of excites me, in that, there may be potential to help me out in some respect, even if it's not, a fix all for my spinal cord injury.
That's exactly,
That
yeah.
that being said, I don't, like, set, like, I'm not putting money on it. I'm not holding my breath waiting for this stuff to come along, right, you guys? I mean, maybe if you can, like, speak on that a little bit, because
No,
I,
I feel the
yeah,
same way like that. Like I'm not looking at it as like something that's gonna be, boom, it's gonna fix me, and I'm gonna be back to just this able-bodied dude. Like, but I feel like it could be something that could give me a better quality of life. Could possibly give me some, slight more function, a little bowel control.
yeah,
The only thing that scares me would be more neuropathy, because as my injury has progressed, like I said, I'm going to be coming up on my 19 years in a couple months here. Um, I have gotten more neuropathy. I've gotten more nerve pain, more sensation. So like I think our friend Anthony from Triumph says, like if he lived 500 years, he'd walk again, because your spine slowly it is healing, just super super slow.
yeah.
But even just that little bit of function, like whatever that I have regained, has been a little bit uncomfortable. Like I have way more pain than I had 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That's for sure. So
Well, that's kind of where stem cells are a little
and
funny,
that's it.
because I don't know, like, we have lots of different issues that are related to SCI, meaning, like, pressure sores are one of the biggest ones that it can be a negative side effect of spinal cord injury if you're not careful and doing proper pressure reliefs, is, if you get a wound or something, but also, muscle and ligament breakdown, from misusing those muscles to compensate for the lack of functioning body parts, right? My, physiology has changed a little bit. I've used my arms a lot to compensate for my lack of legs, but as a result of overuse and picking up for my legs where they're lacking, my ligaments and my muscles and my tendons in those extremities are not very healthy in that,
Yeah.
they're all tore up and they hurt a lot. They, aren't that fun to deal with. Stem cell therapy has a ton of potential. And actually, like, this is beyond the clinical trials because stem cell therapy is a real thing that they're actually doing here in the States. And you can do it if you get a broken leg. You can do it if you, you know, tear your ACL or if you tear ligaments and that were once not repairable. Even up to recently, like those kinds of injuries could be completely life altering and debilitating in some respects, but they're using stem cell therapies to treat it. Now, Bobby
Yeah.
here has, if any of you guys like have been listening to the show the last couple months, Bobby's been dealing with a wound that he received as a result of he had to get a surgery to deal with an infection near his coccyx, and then the wound opened up following the procedure, if I'm not correct. If I am correct, and since it's just been, what stage was it? What level of wound were you having to deal with, Bobby?
Oh, you're like muted, Bob.
Yeah, Bobby muted, I think.
Oh, am I? Jeez.
Like,
Okay.
no, you're good.
Sorry about that. My wife got up and then started asking me a question. Um, Lost my train of thought.
No, I was just asking what stage of like pressure sore were
So,
you dealing with?
so really, it started with a an abscess. So an
Okay.
abscess that it could have been from anything. Most likely it was from a big bang over these last few months. Maybe I did have something underlining that there could have been a pressure sore that just wasn't on the surface. That was underneath. We don't know, but basically it showed itself as an abscess. Went to the ER. The surgeon came in, said, "Yeah, you have an abscess. We see these all the time. Let's drain it." Drained it. He found that there was some pus. Pus means there's an infection there. Cleaned it out, closed it up. You're good to go. Let's get you on IV antibiotics because there was an infection there. Let's hope that it doesn't go to the bone, and we'll see you in, what was it, 3 months, and we'll look at and do another MRI. Go back in 3 months, did the MRI, and he's like, "Oh crap, we see that the bone is infected on the MRI." So I go in and we're going to do a surgery, open it up, clean it out. And if he has to scrape the bone, he scrapes the bone. He goes in there, finds no infection to the bone, no nothing. So then we stitch it up. And the day after, 3 days after the surgery, and the day after the surgery, I got home, the wound opened up, the surgery wound. So, not sure why, if it was the way he sewed it up, maybe because the abscess was bigger underneath that nothing was gonna take, who knows. So, but it closed up that in a sense that I didn't have a stage 1, a stage 2. You can say that it is a stage 4 underneath because the opening is, like the size of maybe your pinky nail, and underneath it just tunnels, and it has a big tunneling where the inside did not close up.
Yeah.
So you can say that it's probably a stage 4.
And so when we're talking about the stages of the pressure sore, basically is like the depth and severity of it. So I don't know, anything that's like, I think more than a couple centimeters that's open and down into you is like stage 3, stage 4. More surface stuff like could be stage 1, stage 2. Um, but we have some really amazing shows on the pressure sores and the importance of maintaining healthy skin.
And that's what Bobby
But
typically is, and he taught me when I was first hurt.
yep.
He's pretty good about his skin and doesn't get too many sores. So that's why this is more of like that surgical wound and whatever little bump, abscess
Well,
that was there.
it can
But
also just be
it's
like
just
the
even when
importance
you're,
of, you know, and the risks again increase with SCI when it comes to any kind of surgery on your backside where, any of us are sitting for long periods of time, the potential for any of this kind of stuff to like adversely affect us is increased. Our risk is increased because of the nature of how we heal, and there's the potential for pressure wounds like that.
Mhm.
So how long ago was this, Bobby, that it happened?
So it happened the abscess happened in January. The second surgery happened in April. And then
Okay.
since then, thinking, get home, we went back to the doctor. He's like, wow, I can't believe it opened up. Let's get you on home health. We'll have the home health doctor get you there, um, and we'll take care of it. Mickey just asked a great question. Did I ever use the wound vac? That's what's so weird about this wound, because it was a surgical wound, and the way it closes up and the way it's so narrow inside, and the opening is, like I said, the size of your pinky nail, and when it tunnels, it just tunnels not deep, it just tunnels sideways,
Yeah.
and at 11
So
o'clock, and the doctors, three doctors that I've been to, do not. It's not a wound that's big enough to do a wound vac. It's not big enough to do like what's the other one? It's a flap surgery where they would take muscle and put it in there. They're like, it's not that. So what it basically turned into right away is it turned into a chronic wound. So why did it turn into a chronic wound? Most likely, like Shawn and myself, are skinny mother effers. We do skin and bones, and over time, and like we talked, I've lost all my muscle in my butt, and I just have no muscle. I have no fat there. It's just you touch and there's the bone, and so it just created chronic wound right away. And even talking to the doctor today, he's just like, yeah, those things, right now we're just now going to treat it. It's just going to move forward.
so
You move on with your life. We're going to watch it over time. You'll take care of it, but you're going to start living your life again, instead of what I've been doing is staying down on my side and getting off it as much as I can.
yeah.
Didn't want to take that. So I've been thinking about other things, so I've looked into, first I started looking into, I did the first thing, all the proteins, the drinks, the bone marrow, um, uh, uh, bone fat drinks, you name it, to increase that protein, increase the different vitamins, the zincs, the C's, everything, the collagen, adding more collagen. Then I started looking into magnetic therapy. There's a lot uh, of stuff on magnetic therapy of healing. Then it came down to somebody just said something about, what about stem cell? And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? And they're like,
Well, you
well,
started using the hyperbaric too, right?
Yeah, right
and then, oh
behind you.
yeah,
You got
that's another thing. The thing behind me, the big old tank, was doing the hyperbaric, and that wasn't, you know, that started looking like it was going to change, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. It didn't
What
do
was the
much. It
reason for
made
the hyperbaric to like promote better circulation?
better circulation to compress the cells, your the way your cells are in there, compress them, and the pure oxygen. Oxygen is also a healing mechanism for our
mm-hmm.
body. So
Yeah.
the problem is with that one, it's doesn't go as deep as the tanks that you see at the hospital, and I'm not breathing pure oxygen.
Yeah.
So then I discovered stem cell, and because I heard about it through people who get it for their knees, instead of getting a knee replacement, they're doing stem cell or
Yeah.
a shoulder tear. And I just thought, like, let me check around. So I started finding a few doctors that have treated stem cell for wounds. And the one doctor that I found was in Chicago, and he was taking stem cell from your bone marrow. And I was like, great. The price was a little pricey, but you know what? Let me see what else I can find closer. Because going to Chicago to treat a wound, I don't know. Let's
See,
let me see if I can find something local. Found a few other places that no, we haven't done that. We're just strictly for knees and shoulders and hips. Then I finally found this doctor that does it for everything, and he did it a different way. So what he was doing is taking fat, um, taking the stem cell out of our fat. So what I had to do was get on the table, and basically he pinches what fat they could find, and uh, pretty much kind of like a I don't know if anybody ever seen like those surgical weight loss programs. Um,
Yeah,
the
I don't like hearing.
600 pound guy, and they're taking and they're
Oh,
sucking up
liposuction.
liposuction. So
Yep.
they use your adipose stem cell,
Or are they
and
just
then
sticking a straw and go? No, just kidding.
That it
felt like
sounds.
it sounded
Uh,
like it too. It was,
oh God.
and what's nice about doing it that way compared to bone marrow. Bone marrow, there can be a problem by going into your bone marrow. It's very painful. This was done just a local. The only thing I didn't, not asleep. He just numbed the area. Obviously, I don't have feeling down there. And then he was able to pinch each side, poke a hole, and start sucking the fat out. So what's great about stem cells is once you can grab on a few stem cells, they can be split, and they
Yeah.
can, be split into millions. So that's how they started is once they grabbed the fat, isolated the stem cell, and then spin it to where I had 60 million injected around the wound area. Um, right now, this was 2.5 weeks ago. We've saw some improvement to the wound. Now, he told me that it's going to take a couple months and we're going to do this again. And we'll keep watching it. It doesn't have, it's something that just like anything, it has to regrow and help stimulate a lot of those nerves and the cells around that area. So that's where we're just, we're kind of waiting for is some of that to happen. One thing that's the wound has taken place is um, more blood supply. So I'm noticing tinges of blood on the bandage, and that's a positive sign.
Yeah.
The cool thing about this doctor, and I'll tell you if anybody's interested in it, and I know uh, Celtic Bear. If you're back on, I want to hear more about definitely talk about your spinal stenosis. Because I'm dealing
Yeah.
with the same thing. Because I asked him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to see your MRI," and so maybe he can do something about my spinal stenosis where like even at the beginning of the show this arm just when I'm in a certain way my arm just starts going numb, and it's just when
I
I
get
I
that.
didn't have surgery after my accident. So the one doctor I did go to, he's like, oh my god, that is a mess back there. You are like all over the place with your bones, and your C6 was just shattered and they didn't do anything. Oh my gosh, no wonder why you have problems. He's like, I'm surprised you can even lift both your arms. I was like, geez. So he's going to look at that. But the coolest thing I saw from this doctor is introduced me to a young man that came in. He was a severe brain injury. His family brought him in, and he introduced me to him. And he said, we've been working with him for a year, doing stem cell every once a month, and they're going to do it for a year. And when he came in, he wasn't able to lift his neck. He had a severe drooling problem and wasn't able to focus or track with his eyes. Now, when I met him, his head was up. He was looking around. When I would say something, he would look in my direction. When the doctor would say something, he looked in his direction, and he was not drooling at all. It was amazing. And so I was like,
Hmm.
wow.
The
And that's all
potential
all they're doing is putting stem cell in them.
and the potential for treatment in regards to Alzheimer's, ALS. Sounds crazy, even like type 1 diabetes. But lots of trauma
Crohn's
related
disease.
and
Yeah.
degenerative disorders, as like anything that has to do with your, not anything, but um, deterioration of the central nervous system. And there's a myriad of things that can cause this, including, the biggest one that mostly affects us is like trauma. um, there's potential for stem cells to be a benefit and effect in treatment and recovery. And the question is, were these treatments, first of all, ethical, safe, and did they work? Over the last decade, those three questions have been answered. In that, yes, they are ethical, and that stem cells, even umbilical embryonic stem cells, can be derived in an ethical way, without harming, any form of human life that individuals might, consider. Is it safe? Yes. One of the things that I wanted to mention earlier, which I always heard about when researching stem cells, is the potential for, it's called tumor genesis. It's like the potential for these stem cells to turn into different kinds of
Tumors.
cells that
I've
aren't
heard
supposed to
that.
be, the nerve cells that aren't the right kinds of cells, and, turn into tumors. That's not, that's kind of more myth now. The way that stem cells work, the way that they're administered, that's not a risk. So they are safe. Um, there are side effects associated with it. In all of the 62 studies, they did list, all of the major side effects. There were no serious side effects that affected quality of life. That everything was either related to like neuropathy and, like cellular, like nerve regeneration, which again was showing efficacy of the treatment, that nerves were generated to a certain degree. And, having to deal with those side effects certainly can be debilitating, but nothing life threatening as a result of the treatments, meaning there was no risk, serious risk of death, or even like life altering injury as it related to the treatment. Some of the studies did, lead to leaking of spinal fluid that I think debilitated the individuals for a time. But again, that's like the mechanism through which the stem cells are administered to SCI patients is sticking it right in the spinal cord. And I guess that's part of it. Um, but the real question that they're asking now, and where we're at with trials, even here in the United States, is the phase three, which is, are these treatments or these therapies anything better than what we have right now, be it providing meaningful, continuous rehabilitation over a long period of time. Other things like epidural stimulators, which I, mentioned earlier, is like like electrical stimulators in your spinal cord at the damaged area, and them actually using electronics to bridge the, damaged area, and providing, a pathway for your nerves to operate. Um, there's all kinds of different studies being done. I got to tell you, the results of what's been done internationally, and these are like legitimate, medically recognized clinical trials, even if they were not performed here in the United States. These are medical journals that, are doing the studies on the studies that were done in mass, so they can have a better idea, of the efficacy of all this stuff, which is the effectiveness. And the efficacy is real. The effectiveness is real. Like the the trials are working to a certain degree. They're seeing positive results, even if, some negative side effects are being, produced as well. It's just all part of the study and the treatment. This may be more effective for acute level of injuries, meaning more recently injured individuals versus chronic, injuries, things like that. But we're finding that out, and they are doing these trials here in the U.S. And they're starting. Dr. Wise Young, I read about, on which you can see all of this stuff on carecure.com. Um, uh, I believe that's the website, or is it sci.rutgers.edu? Navigates you
Yeah.
to there. But just Google CareCure. It's a spinal cord injury forum. that's been put on by 2 decades by one of the leading researchers in stem cell research, Dr. Wise Young. And basically, he went to China for a couple years and was a part of some of these studies. He's the head of their neurological division at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and he's working on right now. It's been a little bit slow coming out of the pandemic, but repeating these studies here in the United States, because in order for this to become a FDA treatment, they require him to repeat the studies here. They can't take the international data and just trust it. So they're repeating the trials here. They're ongoing right now. One of them started, or I guess it's like 40 people started the trial January of 2021. These studies last several years. They do have a limited budget, I think, of only, I think, 10 or 20 million dollars, which again, like, it limits the group size that they can have. It costs a lot of money to do this kind of treatment. Um, but they're repeating the studies here to just demonstrate to the FDA the efficacy, the effectiveness of the treatment, and hopefully it'll become a more common, more meaningful thing here in the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, again, they said this 5 or 10 years ago too, like in 10 years we're going to be fixing spinal cords and stuff. But we kind of got to the stage where we've demonstrated and proved the efficacy of it, meaning we've done the trials and it does work to a degree. We can hone those you know therapies and methods of treatment, and figure out how to improve upon them. And it's just kind of exciting in that there's real data now instead of kind of a pipe dream. Here's like what we think is going to happen. Now they've demonstrated it, and it might take another decade for it to become a FDA approved treatment here in the United States. But it's still really exciting to see where internationally the treatments might be in a decade from now. And again, like, we got one of our hosts here, Bobby, is a recipient of actual stem cell therapy, which was a pipe dream,
Well,
a decade or two ago.
and
And that's
what's nice
exciting.
is it was more exciting that it was my own, and
Yeah.
asking them is there any side effects that I can have, and they're like, not from your own. We can shoot you with millions and millions and billions. Your body will just not take all of it in because there's just too much for it to handle. It will
Yeah.
just reject it and piss it out. The one thing that I noticed after getting this was that um, my urine never looked better. My bowels worked a lot better, and not only. Oh, that is classic. I just saw our chat and I was like, no way, somebody's. That's too funny. Um, uh, that I lost my train of thought.
Are you telling me that it's turning you into Superman? Like,
It
it's
just
just
made me overall. It made me overall feel better. And now
yeah.
it's one thing to think that could that be a placebo effect? Who knows? It was just
Yeah.
kind of funny how it just coincided that I started feeling better in gut wise, and the one thing that coming away, we took a book from the doctor, and for anybody interested, it's Dr. Lander, Lander, and Rancho Mirage, or you can look it up at Beverly Hills. The Cell Surgical Network is the place that I went to, and what was great is just using my own and injected it into my own body. So,
Yeah.
is it FDA approved? So it is not FDA approved, but it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's not FDA approved. But this doctor, or the doctor's practice, just won one of the few cases that you can win against the FDA, that they can do their procedure because they're using your own stem cell. You're not using you're not using the other methods of stem cell. They're grabbing their own. So there is nothing needed by the FDA to shut them down. So, but they are also recognized by Doctors Association, medical board, um, uh, to to be in practice. So in no way that the FDA could hinder what they're doing because you're using your own. And that was pretty important to me to go and use my own and not something else that might give me a problem down the road, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
it's just for the uses of what our own stem cell and what we're going to be treating and making us feel better overall is, I think, down the road it's going to be something that we're all going to one day save our kids' umbilical cords to make sure you bank it and save
yeah.
it. If and by then hopefully it's cheaper because it ain't cheap. It's not cheap at all,
Well, so that's
and
the other
it
thing.
costs.
Speaking of money, Dylan and Rocky and Sarah, thank you guys so
Yeah,
much
Yeah.
for the super chats. We love and appreciate you guys. Dylan, you're awesome. Miss you, man.
also
Hope you're good.
we had one from
And
Ben.
Rocky and Sarah, been enjoying your content in New York City on your trip. It's been cool
And
watching, hanging out, and
don't forget about our
going
OG
along the
Ben
journey.
too.
And Benny boy, hope your road trip's been good, man. You gotta have you on to tell us about it. But thank you guys so much for the love and support. We appreciate you guys. Dr. Wise Young, again, I keep talking about him because I don't know, he's probably who I follow most in terms of like leading these studies and the movement of these studies here in the U.S. He's just been one of the leading researchers for the last 20 years. So he's just one of the OGs on this stuff. And in like this presentation he did on it, he mentioned like there's really only one thing barring stem cell therapy from being a meaningful treatment that's utilized every day around the world, and particularly here in the U.S. is money. There just have not been there hasn't been enough money allocated to the research and study of stem cells, mainly because of the politics surrounding it. It always comes down to freaking politics, which pisses me off so much. But it was just surrounded in a bad political light for a number of years, which meant it received no federal and no state funding, while Parkinson's and other things received upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, I'm not saying that those don't deserve as much, but it kind of bums me out to know that politics have slowed this cool research that I think is really showing a lot of potential. Um, if we had gotten, he said, if we had gotten $10 billion, 10 years ago, there would probably very likely be, federal FDA approved stem cell treatments actively going
Yeah.
on, being utilized today. But, because it's only been in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, the studies and the cost of these studies, just slowed it down to an immense degree in that they're limited by, the number of, people they can have in the trials concerning the cost. And then, costs over years too, because these you know, studies are unfortunately take a long time to demonstrate the efficacy of them. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate that it's been slowed around because of politics and money. But the point is that that's not been the case all around the world, and because of that, uh, doctors and researchers have been able to study and demonstrate that this is real effective treatment and can be for a lot of people out there. We just have to, better study it and better understand it. Um,
It
the
will happen.
basic, yeah, go ahead, Shawn or
No, I
Bob.
was saying
That was Bob.
it will happen. It's going to happen one day. The more, the more they find out the uses for it, and um, I think it's just going to be the new treatment. I mean,
Well,
there's a great podcast on where what our medical is the road that we're going down. That one day, pretty soon, you'll just be probably just paying. Everything's going to be a la carte, and you'll pay for your treatment. Your own medicine, your own doctor's appointments and stuff like that. Um, because pretty soon, there's a shortage of doctors. That's the number one problem, And then the second thing is that insurances and politicians and the FDA, uh, getting all involved with not putting out these types of treatments for stem cell because they don't want the drugs to go away. You know, these guys donate too much to the politicians and they make too much money. So if stem cell, is the next treatment without taking all the drugs and doing the surgeries, they lose out. And so that's why they're fighting for it to stay dormant and not thrive like it should and be studied like it should be here in the US.
And that does sound a little conspiracy theory, but I wrote a research paper on stem cells when I was like a freshman in high school. And no, it was just a high school research paper, but that was part of my paper. And like part of the what I researched and what came up is that like big pharma is against the
Oh
use
yeah.
and utilization of stem cells
Of course there
because
would be. Yeah.
the potential to eliminate huge market sectors that they rely on to make the billions that they do because it'd be a simpler, more
Hey,
effective, better treatment that comes
I've
from
been
your own
saying that
body.
and hearing about that about cannabis for the last 25 years too, man. That's
But
why
it's
we can't.
Well,
but it's finally here too.
That
Now we
shit.
got it. And there's, luckily now we can go, for most states can go down to our local
Yeah,
dispensary and pick
and
up
that
whatever
took
you
just
need.
it took a lot of time and work, but it's still not even national, like national, federal, whatever, um, because that would take like some out of the pocket of big pharma. But
and
um,
yo, to address a couple of
but
comments, I'm your wife's boyfriend. We can
I was
definitely
gonna.
and we'll definitely do a sex and dating episode again in the near future. It's always like a very current topic that's a popular one. So we'll put it on the docket. Hopefully, in here in the next couple of weeks, we can maybe organize a cool show around that. And I wanted to touch on your most recent comment too. You said, I've gotten used to being in a chair. I'm concerned about the secondary complications that are caused by it. Um, I yeah, I felt kind of weird doing this show in some respect because I've never been like a big promoter or pusher of stem cells. I think it's interesting. I love science, and medical advancement is definitely like a part of science that I pay a lot of attention to because it relates to me a little bit, and I want to live forever. I want to live a long time, as long as I possibly can. So I try to stay on the up and up with it, but I don't really like to sell the pipe dream of like a recovery too, because I'm very content with my life, and I'm happy with where I'm at now. I feel healthy, I feel functional. I'm not looking to like jump up tomorrow, or like I'm not looking to like spend a lot of time and energy, working on a cure because, or like I'd rather spend my time and energy working on living my life right now. I don't want to like waste my energy on a hope and a prayer. This is stuff that's exciting to pay attention to. Again, I like don't put any more energy towards like looking into it than I do, like looking into the politics that I'm interested in, or other cool like fun things that I'm interested in. It's just like something I keep up on, I keep tabs on. But I'm not putting stock in it, not investing in stem cells to, like fix me in the future because I'm putting that energy towards myself and my everyday life and living in the moment and rehabilitating myself in the current state of my body, because I know I can be functional and live just as happy and functional and fulfilled life as any other person out there from my chair, without having to worry about like or hoping about some cure in the future down the road because I don't gotta worry about it because I'm good with where I'm at now. It's taken me time to get there, everybody. I think it's all a journey we have to personally go down, and kind of finding security within yourself. And it's not perfect either. I got my down days, so I'm like, oh God, like why can't I just walk again? Whatever, right? But I'm being 100% honest when I say like I'm very content. I'm 100% content with my life, my level of function, my quality of life that I have attained for myself over the last 25 years through putting a lot of work and time and energy to it. And I know, and I hope I'm not speaking out of term, that like Bobby and Shawn are similar in how they feel about themselves and their, level of function and, their ability to live life. Um, like I wouldn't, put too much faith in any one thing that's going to be like a fix all or a cure all to your life, because that doesn't exist. I think, the best cure to spinal cord injury is, coming to terms with where you're at, your current level of function, and figuring out how to adapt your life and,
Just trying to live your
become as
best life.
functional and independent as possible.
I'm just living one day at a time. One day at a time.
Exactly. Um,
But,
did you guys
so
want to
yeah,
add anything onto that? Bobby? Sean?
One
Kevin?
thing is for your wife's boyfriend. Don't worry, man. 28, you're a young pup.
yeah, you are
I
young,
didn't meet
bro.
my wife until after I was 30, and
Yeah,
now
man.
married 20 years. So don't worry, it's gonna happen. When you least expect it. But definitely, I think that's a great show, and wish I can contribute more on that kind of show. But uh, about all I can do is say in my 20s, have as much fun as you can, because it will happen one day, and when you least expect it. And then, yeah, secondary concerns are the complications that go along with it, not only mentally but physically and you know emotionally. All of it, it is a concern. And I know, one day, I do want to get on here and be real about some of this shit, about
Yeah.
those secondaries, because yeah, you're right. Some days I'm miserable as hell. Like Shawn was saying that his neural pain is starting to increase. Mine is increased to a point. Then all of a sudden you get a pressure sore, and then you put on, and all these other things. And we're pretty lucky, us here at Live to Roll. We live in California. We get to meet a lot of people who are similar injuries, similar situations, and live in a state that we get sunshine almost every day. We don't have to worry about the weather too much. The only thing we have to worry about is high taxes and traffic. But then you put people that are living, isolated from nobody who has a spinal cord within 300 miles or 500 miles in a state that is not accessible, and a hospital that is too far. And I can see where some of these secondary things can really play a big part in your life. And I feel for you, for those who have a hard time being able to be sociable, because we say it here so easily. Go be sociable, go do something. Like last week we were, or a couple of weeks ago, we were given ideas of everything you can do over the sun. But in the chat, I think there was somebody that just said, hey, there's nobody around here, that either relates to what I'm going through. I, live by myself. I have one person coming in, and there's not much to do in a chair here. And that must suck. And I feel for
Yeah.
you guys.
No,
So
definitely.
I guess if we just
Just
maybe want to do a little, well, first off, can I plug our sponsors real quick before we
Absolutely.
forget and
Yeah.
it's too late in our show?
Yeah.
Um,
You're supposed to
First
hit your
off, I like
time.
to thank Mobility Professionals. They are a mobility company out here in Southern California that specializes in wheelchairs and other rehabilitation equipment. And they're your go-to if you're located in the Southern California area and you're trying to get yourself a new wheelchair or similar equipment. They will help you out, help you understand what you need, the best products for you that'll keep you most healthy and mobile. Work with your insurance and do it um, all for you, and they are just awesome. Very great members of the community, and they help a lot of people out. So go give them some love. Let them know Live to Roll sent you. And their sister company, Urology Professionals, is a urological supply company. Now, all of us need catheters. Well, most of us, maybe not all of us, but if you deal with, SCI and it just happens to be part of your injury, a lot of us do. Getting catheters is not always so easy these days, though it should be, because any level of insurance you have anywhere in the United States, they should be a part of it if you require them. Um, Urology Professionals is a national company that can work with you, work with your insurance. help understand your situation, get whatever verbiage you might need from your doctor, to make sure it's like all authorized and approved correctly. But the point is that they're in the know about what you need to know and getting your catheter supplies, and will do some of the legwork on your behalf, and your insurance and stuff to help you get what you need. So if you're struggling in any regard, nobody should struggle to pee. If that, like, especially if the limiter is having the supplies required to do so. So do yourself a favor, give your urology professionals a call, let them know Live to Roll sent you, and get your catheters taken care of.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks. We love our sponsors. They are awesome and help us out a lot. So thank you,
Yeah.
Mobility
And you guys
Urology
do too. The
Professionals.
reason we're doing it is because of you guys. We love and appreciate our audience so much.
Of course.
You guys feed my soul.
Yeah,
So
thank all you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the super chats and super stickers earlier. Appreciate all you guys, all the love, just the support, hanging out with us. And
Now, this
I didn't
Thursday-
know Kelly, How I Roll was in Anchorage, Alaska. Jesus, man.
Ooh. Kelly, can I come and visit?
You know,
I've been trying to figure out an Alaska trip for a long time.
I
And
know,
that
dude.
would be
Not
great.
anytime soon.
Him and Paul would be great to talk about dealing with extreme weather in these kind of areas with using your chair, being SCI. And, I mean, the weather changed here just a little. It was like windy yesterday morning, and man, it threw my body off for a loop. It was just like, and I can't even imagine that, here you are in October, it's snowing, and, my body.
But it's a little brisk up in Saskatoon.
My body would just shut down. So I feel for you guys, and I don't even know what you guys go through. So I'd love to hear it one day.
I grew up in the Bay Area, and we probably get like between like 40 and 60 inches of rain like annually, and most days would be like pretty foggy and wet. And I don't know if you'd call that extreme weather, because we get extreme weather in California too often, but just the colder rain environment, it was weird because I kind of did it without thinking about it for most of my life until I moved to LA. And now I'm not sure I can go back, because I'm just wondering how the hell I survived the cold for as long as I did. Because I'd wake up and hug a space hater like in my room every morning. I would like beg my mom to like get the fire going before she left work at like 6 a.m. so I could like hug a warm log for like an hour before I had to go to school and stuff. And that's how I used to live my life. It was crazy.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if I could do all that. That sounds too cold for me, man. And yeah, Paul said it's 36 up there. In
How I roll
Saskatoon,
says swap with
looks
me,
like
Tom.
Alaska's a little.
Hey, how about I swap you for the summer? I've always wanted to experience the sunny,
Yeah,
sunny
for the
summer
summer.
that
That's
goes
what I was saying.
along in.
If we're visiting Anchorage, it's not gonna be for like at least 6 months.
They would roast. Paul and How I Roll, they would roast out here. They'd be like, man, it's sunny.
But Kelly, really
I
love
know.
to talk to you about navigating Alaska from a chair, dude. It sounds pretty amazing. Something I'd really love to hear about. But
Yeah.
we have a show coming up on Thursday. What up, Titus? Coming to us from Michigan. Bobby and
So
another
new show coming.
Robert, Bob and Bob are going to be talking about aging with disability in our new Live to Roll show called Rolling Over the Hill. We're going to be doing twice a month. We're just trying to do some different style of shows, cover some different kinds of topics and stuff. And yeah, bring on some different guests. So we're really excited to talk to you guys about this. And it's going to be similar time as the ladies show. So please be sure to hit that little notification bell next to the subscribe button, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, because it will notify you when we go live every week. Get that little notification on your phone or your computer, and you won't even have to do anything other than click the little link, and it'll take you right to it. So please make sure to do that, or put it on your calendar. You want to just go hog wild.
Yeah.
But it's going to be happening this Thursday, the premiere at 3 o'clock. I know I'm going to be tuning in, and I'm super excited.
And so those will pretty much be opposite of Brianna's show. So Brianna's will be on the first and third Thursdays. Bobby and Robert will have the second and fourth Thursdays. And if there's a fifth one, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a surprise show somewhere. Everybody together.
We're just trying to do a lot more content. I don't know, like once a week, and every other week doesn't feel like enough. We're away from you guys too much. We want to, have this conversation a little bit more with you guys, and keep talking about different topics and different stuff. It's something we really enjoy doing. So thank you guys for joining us. Is there
Oh,
anything
so where's
else?
your Sean? Where's your sticker for our merch store? So, as you guys can see, we have some T-shirts that the boys are wearing. Sean's wearing a great hat. I got the trucker style hat. So, if you want some merch, go to our merch
And
store. It's
I was gonna
out.
say I actually was able to link it. You should be able just to get to it right
I don't
below
really
in the
wear hats
description
forward because they
on
look funny.
YouTube.
So I'm not gonna put
So
that on the video, but you can look at my bed head.
We lost your microphone.
it's all right. We'll get it back in a second. But yeah, so thanks guys. Check out the Shopify store if you guys do want to check it out. The link is down in the description, and they should be popping up at the bottom because it's linked right to our YouTube channel.
Heck
So you guys
yeah,
can check
live
that
to
out.
roll, baby.
There
Come
you
and
go.
support us if you feel
Yeah,
so
and
inclined, or just keep watching the videos because we love you no matter what.
and here one more time for y'all. There's all 3 shows that we got going on, so check them out. Tuesdays and Thursdays, guys. We will be pretty much on lock every week. Tuesday, Thursday. Come hang out with us. So we
And
appreciate y'all.
yo, we got more content coming to you too, because we're gonna have literal gaming starting up soon.
I know.
Y'all don't even know. You're never gonna be able to get rid of us. So I hope you enjoy hanging out with us, because we're gonna be making a lot of content the next couple of months.
Yep, yeah, that's what Tom's gonna have some Live Troll Gaming stuff coming. So yeah, make sure you do click that bell when you're subscribed. Get all those notifications. You're gonna be getting a couple a week here for videos. So
But it's gonna be a lot of
all
fun,
right,
a lot of cool
everybody.
stuff, and we're gonna be just hanging, having fun too. Trying to do some different style of stuff.
So yeah, thank
My
you guys
dog.
all for watching. Appreciate you all. Appreciate your support, and we will see you guys next week. And Bobby will see you in a couple days.
You got it.
Live to roll, everyone.